Thank you for joining me today on Leading Today. I'm Dr. Lisa Bagby, and today I want to talk to you about emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and the leader's role. Conflict is inevitable. I think we all know this. But chaos is optional. It does not have to happen. Emotionally intelligent leaders don't avoid conflict. They hold it responsibly in a way that builds trust even when outcomes are imperfect. So, I want to talk to you a little bit on a few different areas regarding conflict resolution. And as usual, I'm going to give you a few takeaways that you can apply immediately in your leadership practice to help you and your team or a pair of individuals move through conflict responsibly and ideally amicably. But let's talk first about why conflict management is an emotional intelligence skill. Remember, conflict is not a people problem, it's a relationship moment. Leaders who understand emotions can turn that friction into clarity instead of damage. So, I'm going to talk with you today a little bit around emotional intelligence and how it shows up most clearly during tension, not harmony, actually. And I want to talk a little bit too about employees that watch how leaders handle conflict and what they decide based on their observations. So they're looking at and they're deciding, is it safe to speak up? Will I be heard fairly? Can I trust my leader when things get uncomfortable or when I bring a conflict issue to them? And the last thing is really around how avoiding conflict does not preserve trust. It actually very much erodes it, even very quietly. So I want you to think of this. When you think of conflict, think of it that it's like two people who are pulling on the same need or resource. But a good leader doesn't walk away or scold when they either see this conflict or it's brought to their attention, but instead, they help both folks explain what they want and figure out how to keep working together, even if neither gets the resource exactly how they want it. That's really important because conflict resolution is not a perfect outcome because each party should be seeking understanding and likely compromising. So let's talk a little bit about trust building and why employees rely on leaders during conflict. So in practice, trust kind of looks like, employees who are coming to a leader before the problem actually explodes. So they want to sit down with the leader and have a conversation. And it may seem a little informal or, hey, do you have a minute? I want to talk to you about something. Be mindful, be aware, and have your ears turned on to listen for that. That is a signal that that person is trusting you in that moment. But in that time, that individual is believing that you, as the leader, will listen without taking sides too quickly, that you will keep things confidential, and that you will focus on the solution, not punishment or the people so much. Now, I understand that when we're talking about keeping things confidential, you cannot always promise that to folks, and that is understandable. But in terms of building that trust, you want to at least express to the individual, you'll keep it confidential within the confines of whatever your HR policies are or things around investigations, things of that sort. But gently apprise or inform that individual of that as you listen to whatever the conflict is. Remember, good leaders are not judges in these situations. Good leaders are the assessors and the facilitators of understanding to gain trust and mutual resolution. Now, when leaders handle conflict and emotional intelligence, some of the things that the employees will learn are that it's safe to be honest, that disagreement doesn't equal retaliation, and they also realize that resolution is about forward movement, not blame. So remember, this is going back to the idea that you are trying to resolve the issue, not point the finger or attack the individual. So you might ask, how do you go about facilitating conflict between two employees? You don't want to avoid it. Avoidance is going to be the worst choice for the leader and the team because its impact actually is immeasurable. But you, as the leader, your role is not to decide who is right. Your role is to create structure when emotions feel unstructured. Remember, one of the conflict skills and emotional intelligence skills is relationship management, conflict management. But you're also there to foster the safe space for conflict to get resolved. And so here's how that might work. One thing that's really important is before the conversation, meet with each employee briefly and separately. All right, you're going to take in the information. You want to have a set of questions already established that can maybe help you get to the heart or the root of the issue, or as close to it as you can get. And so you want to also ask, what is the outcome that they want and what they're willing to do differently? And you're going to ask these questions separately, which allows you to come away with and compare, do we have some mutuality in here that when I bring these individuals into the same space, that I can actually bring forward? So when that time comes, you're able to say, I spoke with each of you and I asked you both, what is the outcome that you want? And actually, you all have in common this, and then explain what that is. Or if they share something about what they're willing to do differently, speak to that. But the idea is you're setting the expectations and that this is really a working relationship repair. It's not a verdict. Okay. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get two people who may have a conflict or a team, because it could be more than two people, and getting to a place where we can work collectively together so that we can continue being productive and effective as a team. Now, one really key component that is very important in this entire segment today is the establishment of ground rules for a facilitated conflict conversation. I cannot express the importance of setting ground rules for the conversation that you as a leader will facilitate. Think of your ground rules as the roadmap that helps you get from point A to point B, and in particular, realizing that this is a map of a landscape for which you have never traversed. You cannot assume, because you've been in this space before, that you know exactly how to get to the end result each and every time, especially when you are dealing with different individuals who are in conflict. Always establish and communicate ground rules to both individuals. You want to do this separately and then do it again when everyone is in the same space with you. And you want to obtain agreement before starting the facilitated conversation for or towards resolution. What I would add to that is once everyone understands the ground rules and has said that they do, you want to take a moment and ask, do they have one or two things that they each may want to add to the ground rules list? And again, obtain agreement. But no more than one or two additions from each person. Their contributions may prove important and may actually get more buy in to dialogue because they each feel that these are their asks that will be respected. But here are your ground rules. And I will have a document that you can download through my LinkedIn page, that I will also link for you, that you can use so you're able to access it and have it in front of you when you go into your facilitated meetings. But the first one is one that you want to ensure respecting the person but challenge the issue. You want to make sure that we're speaking about behaviors and impacts and not character or intent. But when we start talking about character, we are personalizing the situation. And that's not where the focus is. We want to make sure that we say one person speaks at a time. There's not interruptions. We want to make sure that people are listening because that is part of accountability. The third ground rule is using I statements. I experienced dot dot dot, or I felt dot dot dot, or I need dot dot dot. The fourth is about assuming positive intent and acknowledging real impact because harm doesn't require bad intentions to be real. All right. Number five, confidentiality is expected. So knowing that what is shared stays in this space unless safety or policy requires otherwise. Remember, I spoke to that a little earlier. Number six, focus on future behavior, not past punishment, not retaliation. That's not what this is about. The goal is workable agreements, and we are not replaying history. This is a fresh start from this day forward, essentially. Number seven, the leader, that's you, may pause the conversation. And you pause the conversation if emotions are escalating, and the leader, you, can reset at that moment or reschedule if that seems what is more feasible. And that's very important. You want to honor and respect the individual and or individuals if emotions seem to be high or escalating or unable to regulate. Number eight, agreement about the conflict or the issue is not required. Only understanding is. Two people in a conflict are going to see the conflict differently, and they may even come into the meeting with an idea that it's a completely different conflict from what they experienced. That is okay. Their lived experience for that conflict is theirs alone. The idea is for each to gain understanding. You don't have to like each other to work well together, but you want to establish that mutual respect is expected. Number nine, shared accountability. Both partners will leave with commitments, not just insights. Those team partners, those team players, whomever they are, need to walk away with a commitment that says this is how they will move forward as accountable for the things that will ensure proper, positive forward movement. Number 10 is that the work still matters. Professional responsibility continues regardless of personal feelings. This is a grown space. People have to come to work and work alongside one another, and they may not always like one another. It could be for a day, it could be for a month, it could be, unfortunately, for the duration that they have to be in the department with one another. But we want to make sure that there is an understanding around the ground rules, a respect for one another, and that there is a capability of the team to move forward in a positive way. All right. So those are the 10 ground rules. And remember, ask them if they want to add one or two additional items for ground rules that they feel are important that maybe weren't covered in the list that we just talked about. So you might ask then, what is a good resolution or what does it really mean? All right. A successful resolution is not where everyone feels amazing, that there's full agreement on every point, or that instant trust is restored. That's not going to necessarily be the case. That's not even how you should go into your conflict resolution meeting or facilitated discussion. But a successful resolution is mutual understanding of perspectives. It is clear agreements on behavior moving forward, and it's a commitment to collaborate despite discomfort, alongside of having reduced tension and fewer repeat issues. That is successful resolution. Okay. So if you want, you can think of it like conflict is not necessarily going to end perfectly, but when people are feeling heard or respected, they're very clear about expectations, then the team and the organization actually wins. And ultimately, that's what we want. This is still creating a productive environment, and that the other team members around one another get the observational takeaway that, wow, they might not like each other personally, but man, they sure know how to work alongside each other professionally. And that is what you ultimately want as the leader. But so here are the benefits of emotionally intelligent conflict resolution. For the employees, they have psychological safety, they have clarity and fairness, and they have increased trust and engagement and retention. So those are some pretty nice positives, I would say, right? Now, for the teams, you should experience or you should see that there's less gossip, less stress, less triangulation, that there is faster recovery after this kind of tension over a conflict has erupted. And then you gain stronger norms around accountability. So teams benefit from these aspects of an emotionally intelligent conflict resolution. Now, for you as the leader, you've got some pretty good takeaways too. You have credibility, you have trust capital, you have fewer escalations to HR, which is clearly less disrupting to your team as a whole. And then you have a reputation for steadiness under pressure. And who doesn't want that as part of their moniker as a leader, so to speak? Okay. You know how to handle these kinds of pressuresome situations at times. So the idea is to remember conflict will happen, conflict among team members will happen. How you handle it makes the difference. Are you engaging for mutual respect and resolution, or are you avoiding it? I hope it's the former and not the latter. But remember, leadership isn't proven when things are easy. It's proven when the tough times happen and your people trust you enough to bring you the hard things, and that you know how to hold those things with care and clarity while still creating team cohesion and trust. You are a leader that is going from good to great, and doing those things that we just talked about for conflict resolution are elements of a great leader. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you had some wonderful takeaways from this discussion. I look forward to seeing you at the next podcast. Until then, I wish you great leading. Thank you for joining me on Leading Today. I'm Dr. Lisa Bagby.